Okay, so picture this. You're sitting in church, flipping through the bulletin, and you see the title for the offertory music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Life on Mars.
Oh, wow.
Kind of weird, right, for church?
Yeah, a little unexpected.
Exactly. It's unexpected. And that's actually where we're going to start our deep dive today with a pastor whose Lenten reflection took a pretty interesting turn thanks to that very title.
Interesting how a simple title like that can spark such a deep thought process, huh?
I know, right? I mean, who would have thought Life on Mars in a church bulletin would lead us to, deep philosophical questions about existence?
Yeah, it really highlights how these unexpected connections can pop up anywhere.
Absolutely. So for this pastor, seeing Life on Mars, it just immediately reminded him of that David Bowie song.
Of course, classic Bowie.
Right. And that kind of sent him off on this whole journey of exploring Bowie's music. And 'cause it actually connected with some of his deeper reflections on the philosophy of Martin Heidegger.
Now, that's a fascinating connection, Bowie and Heidegger. Who would have thought?
Seriously. I mean, when I first heard about this, I was like, what? Ziggy Stardust and Lent, how do those two things even go together?
Right, but that's the beauty of it. Sometimes these seemingly totally different things can actually illuminate something really profound about what it means to be human.
That's so true. And the pastor's reflection here really focuses on this Lenten theme of bread for daily life.
Yeah, which is all about our need for nourishment. Not just physical nourishment, but something deeper.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
we're so busy thinking about what we're going to eat for dinner every day. But what about the things that really sustain us on a deeper level? Like what gives our lives meaning and purpose?
Right, and that's the invitation of Lent, right? To think about those deeper hungers, those deeper needs.
And that's where Heidegger comes in.
Ah, yes, the philosopher of being.
Right. And
Yeah.
specifically this concept, he talks about Geworfenheit, which is this German word.
It's a mouthful.
It is. It's a mouthful, but it basically translates to thrownness.
Thrownness. And what does that even mean?
Yeah, so basically Heidegger's idea here is that we are kind of thrown into existence.
Like we didn't have a choice in the matter.
Exactly. You didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose to be here in this particular time and place. You just kind of find yourself here.
So we're just kind of dropped into the middle of it all.
Yeah, and that feeling of being thrown into existence without any clear instructions or a pre-written script that can lead to this really fundamental search for meaning.
Especially in a world that often feels uncertain and chaotic. Like we don't really know what's going on half the time.
Right, it's like we're trying to figure it all out as we go.
And, maybe this idea of being thrown into existence resonates with you. Maybe you've had those moments where you felt like you were navigating life without a map, without a clear purpose.
I think we've all been there at some point.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a core part of the human experience, just trying to make sense of it all.
Totally. And Heidegger doesn't stop there.
Mm.
He also talks about this idea of being in the world, or Dasein, another fun German word.
Heidegger loved his German words.
He did, but Dasein, it's not just about observing life passively. It's about being an active participant in your own existence.
So it's not just watching from the sidelines, it's about getting in the game.
Exactly. Like think about learning a new skill, like baking.
Okay, I love baking.
Me too. So you're not just reading the recipe, you're actively engaging with the ingredients. You're mixing the dough. You're tasting it. You're adjusting things.
You're in it, you're experiencing it.
Exactly. And that active engagement, that's what Heidegger means by being in the world. We're constantly interacting with the world, shaping it through our choices, and being shaped by it in return.
It's like a constant dance back and forth.
And it makes you think about how conscious are we of our own existence?
Yeah.
Are we actively engaging or are we just kind of going through the motions?
Right. Heidegger thought that if we weren't actively engaged, we'd end up feeling disconnected and lost.
Even if we're surrounded by people and activity.
Yeah, it's like being in a crowded room, but feeling totally alone.
And this connects back to that Lenten theme we were talking about, seeking spiritual sustenance.
It's about actively seeking those things that nourish our soul, not just waiting for them to come to us.
And this idea of feeling lost or disconnected. It's interesting how art can sometimes capture those feelings so perfectly. And it made me think of that David Bowie song, Space Oddity.
Ah, Major Tom out there in the vast emptiness of space.
Exactly. It's such a powerful metaphor for these existential themes we've been talking about.
It is, isn't it the way Bowie portrays Major Tom? It really gets you thinking about those deeper questions.
It does. And, just the imagery in that song, Major Tom, floating out there, looking back at Earth, this beautiful blue marble, but completely isolated, unable to return.
There's this haunting sense of loneliness and longing in that song.
Absolutely. And the pastor connects this feeling of isolation to the existential questions that philosophers like Franz Kafka and Albert Camus were wrestling with.
Like, does life have inherent meaning, or do we have to create our own meaning in a universe that might not actually care?
It's a heavy question, right?
It is, and the image of Major Tom drifting further and further away from Earth, it really captures that sense of searching for meaning in a vast and possibly meaningless cosmos.
And it's not just these modern philosophers who are grappling with these questions.
Yeah.
The pastor points out that even in religious tradition, we see the same yearning for meaning and connection in the ancient Israelites and the prophets.
Like they were searching for something to fill the emptiness they felt in their own lives.
Yeah, they long for truth, for justice, for peace, and their spiritual journey. It really mirrors our own struggles today as we try to navigate a world that's often filled with suffering and division.
And if we connect this to our own faith journeys, I think it highlights a really common experience, that feeling of distance or maybe feeling disconnected from something larger than ourselves, even from the divine.
Yeah, like we're all just tiny specks in this massive universe.
Exactly. And you might have felt that way at times, like you're adrift, much like Major Tom floating further and further away from Earth.
But here's where the pastor brings in a really important point about faith, this idea that even though we might feel small and insignificant, we are actually deeply known and deeply loved.
It's a powerful concept to hold on to, isn't it?
It is. It's like even in those moments when we feel most alone, we're not actually alone.
And when you look at Lent through this lens, it becomes an opportunity to really work on bridging that gap between our feelings of isolation and the possibility of connection with the divine.
It's a time for introspection,
Yeah.
for re-examining our relationship with the divine.
And maybe even reestablishing that connection if we've drifted away.
And that's where the pastor ends his reflection with this really beautiful and hopeful thought.
I'm curious, what is it?
He says that this search for meaning, this wrestling with our thrownness into the world, it's not supposed to lead us to despair.
That's good, because that's kind of a downer ending.
I know, right? But he says that instead it can lead us to this amazing discovery.
What discovery?
That the divine isn't some distant, unreachable being, but is actually present with us, within us, offering us sustenance and guidance.
Like daily bread.
Exactly like that daily bread we rely on.
So it's not about searching for something out there. It's about recognizing what's already here.
Right, and the pastor leaves us with these blessings. May you seek, and may you find, may you hunger, and may you be filled. May you discover that God is not distant, but near, dwelling within you, nourishing you always.
Those are beautiful words.
They are, and I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is to really be open to finding these profound insights in unexpected places.
Like a church bulletin.
Exactly. Who would have thought that a simple song title in a church bulletin could lead to this whole deep dive into the human condition?
Makes you wonder what other hidden gems are out there just waiting to be discovered.
It really does. It makes you think about those seemingly random things. A piece of art, a line from a song, a conversation with a stranger that might actually hold a much deeper meaning if we just take the time to explore them.
Like little breadcrumbs of wisdom scattered throughout our lives.
Yeah, and maybe all we have to do is open our eyes and our hearts to see them and let them nourish us.